Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Okay.
Hello, how are you?
Good. I'm wonderful. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good.
You guys getting the snow up there?
A little We bit. Are. I'm four. This is session four of our Accelerator program. And just so that some of you understand that some of our students may not be able to get the recording of this video until later due to their class schedules. And we're hoping that they do log on and get to take advantage of some of the nuggets of wisdom, as Marie has said that she's willing to offer. Um, so I'm Stacy Wassel, director at the program. Luma, who is on here, I believe, as well, is the assistant in the center. She may have had to jump off, but she'll jump back on here in a little bit. And we've been running these sessions hopefully to get students to realize that if you have a really cool idea, you might be able to turn it into a business for yourself. And we've had some outside startup companies that we have invited to also come in, that if they are going through any of these pain points, they can ask and hopefully get some advice from all of you as well. Um, so I am going to quit talking. I'm going to turn it over to Mike and allow him to introduce the speakers that he has on the panel for us. And then we'll just jump right into letting the startups and the founders talk a little bit about their businesses and open it up for some questions.
Thanks, Stacy. So, as Stacy mentioned, this is really hopefully a discussion. So, if people have questions, I mean, this is the chance to ask real founders who started in building a business the tough things about building. So, I would just suggest that anybody who has a question, please just put your hand raised on the chat so you can ask it. So I will ask just some questions until then, and maybe we just start off with just kind of the every hero has their origin story. So let's talk about everyone's origin story here. Maybe I'll start with Joy. Kind of, Joy, maybe give a little background of yourself and a little bit of why you started your company.
Okay. Hi, can you hear me clearly?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, cool. My name is Joy Jen. I'm currently Associate Professor of Computer Science and Information Technology in Frostburg State University. We have three founders. So we founded a company called Innerziverse. We started last October, and our original goal was to build a community technology growth ecosystem. Basically, we have three parts for from first curiosity for K-12 students to college students, linking them from the knowledge to real world capability, and also hopefully in the end, we're going to have a great meaningful impact.
Great. And Joy, why did you start up this company and not just enjoy your life as a FSU professor?
I actually do enjoy my life here. It's my 10th year in Frostburg. What happened is I worked 10 years in the industry before I came back to academia. So I really see the gap in between the theory we taught in university to the real world application problems. So my husband was talking to me last year saying, I want to do something. And I saw that big empty bank space in Main Street. I want to do something. So we were just chatting and talking, spark for ideas. And then we finally got through. We want to build something that create a lab environment for hands-on experience, real life projects, trying of building that gap in between the university learning and real world application. That's how we started in the first place.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. And then Marie, why don't you tell your story of Tasty Tape?
Hi everyone. I'm happy to share. I think I probably have maybe the most interest, or I don't want to claim that. I'll take that back actually. But I have to say I do have a very recent story that I think maybe a lot of students would feel connected to because I started right out of my master's program into building out this company. So I'm the CEO and founder of Tasty Tape, and just a quick summary on what we do. We're making a biodegradable, sustainable food film. Just to kind of cut through the chase, this is what it looks like. It's literally just a piece of plastic that will go on any kind of packaging around food products. But basically, how I started out, originally the idea came out of my master's thesis. We were working on essentially making a burrito tape. That was the product design course. We decided we want to solve a problem. What is the problem we want to solve? It'll be to make sure that burritos stay closed. And of course, a very, relatable issue. I see a couple people laughing on screen here. We wanted to be able to do something that we could do within a period of a year and prototype well. And we did exactly that. But I think what we didn't expect was that we would get a huge amount of traction off of our product and our idea, meaning Jimmy Fallon spoke about us on his opening monologue. We were named one of Time's best inventions. Almost every major news network globally probably spoke about us to some degree. And I think that kind of launched me into the world of entrepreneurship, saying, hey, maybe there are people that are interested in this for a reason, and there might be something here digging a little deeper into. And that is ultimately kind of out of Hopkins, got connected to the entrepreneurship network there and decided that I'm going to start building a company. But I think in that process, to cut to the chase, we were like, burrito tape is cool and fun and exciting, and people love the idea of it and they want to share it. But I don't think it's something that people will keep buying. So we ended up kind of doing a little bit of a pivot and went to sustainable packaging, where I think we can really develop more of a meaningful impact. And I think we have the tech to do exactly that. So that's a little bit of kind of my story condensed and kind of what brought me to being working on this full time now.
Okay, so I do have one question. So when you said this is a wrap for burritos to keep, so can you actually eat this?
Yes. So when we first made it, the main goal and kind of criteria was always to make sure that we made something that people could eat because, you don't want to have to worry about a piece of foil or something that you'll have to peel away and maybe accidentally bite into. And that was kind of a main criteria we had is to ensure the edibility of our product. And then now, even as we've built out the food packaging element of it and made it more kind of like a plastic oriented product, it's still entirely edible. So if you were ever to kind of visit me in person, I'd be happy to share a sample of our kind of edible plastic packaging that we have.
Where are you located?
New York City.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
And then I guess we'll go to the king, the Theron, about your story and how
Theron.
you sort of started from FSU to starting your company.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, everybody, for having me on here. My name is Theron Bennell. Yes, I'm a graduate of Frostburg. I did my undergraduate in social sciences, graduated in 2000, and I got my master's in counseling psychology in 2023. I worked as a therapist for a little while, but I really pursued my dream, which was to be a diplomat. And so I served 20 years as a, special agent, working for the Diplomatic Security Service, which is the law enforcement and counterterrorism branch of the State Department. So we protected embassies overseas and things like that. I retired and wanted to, pursue other things, and I always had a love for music. And I decided to go and study music at Berkeley. And that led me to doing a volunteer position at a festival where doing sound, where I ended up meeting my business partner, Matt Levine. Matt Levine owns a fireworks business and is also a DJ. And one day we were talking, he said, well, I really want to do fireworks and DJing at the same time, but it's not really conducive to safety. So what could we do to be able to enhance a DJ show, but also be able to control it? And we, looked at technologies and different kinds of things. And he's like, well, what do you think about augmented reality? What do you know about augmented reality? And I said, well, I know that I love VR, virtual reality. I play games with it. I'm a pilot. I practice a lot of my flights in virtual reality, that kind of thing. But how are we going to use an augmented reality? The difference between the two is virtual reality is in an enclosed environment. Augmented reality is where you're putting information, 3D assets, art, all sorts of mapping, all sorts of things into your real world. Well, how do we do that? Well, right now we do the technology with phones and with tablets because that's what we use. But what we're really working with, and we started working with the University of Maryland's XR department, is developing for glasses. So we developed an augmented reality experience that anybody can be able to go on and create their own experience in a map that you could use and deploy anywhere in the world and put 2D and 3D assets to be able to navigate to be able to get information back and to be able to share with your friends and be able to record it and use it and put it online. It was originally designed for festival experiences, having gone to festivals many, many, many times, getting lost in them, wanting to know what the next band's going to be playing, and also as a musician, wanting to be able to share the music and the lyrics that I write in a three-dimensional experience beyond just the light show that's beyond. So that was the impetus of our idea of what we wanted to do. So we started this in 2021. We were developing it with a company called Petrichor, which was helped put Pokemon Go on the map, and then found out that when you're working with other companies and you want to develop your own scalability and your own control, it's very, very difficult with external companies to do that because they want to own everything and want you to keep coming back to them. What we wanted to do is we wanted to make it so that anybody could use our software and technical knowledge and be able to build their own from there. So we want to make it so it's usable for all. It's unlike Meta or Microsoft where it's like you have to continually come back to them. I don't know how sustainable that model is because we're bootstrapping it, but so far we've found that it's working very, very well within education because we're at Montgomery College and we're at the University of Maryland right now, so looking to expand more. So that's where we are, and I can get deeper into it and show examples if anybody wants to see.
I'm sure we all want to see
Yeah.
for sure. But maybe we'll just stick with you, Theron.
Yep.
How have you done sort of customer discovery research? Like, I mean, it sounds like this is cool and interesting, but is a reality that there's a customer in a market actually willing to pay for this? Like,
Yeah.
what have you
So
done on
we're
that side?
we're way ahead of what the average user would have access to, just because of where technology is. We were developing a product looking for average deployment within about 5 to 10 years from now. 5 to 10 years from now, based off of Moore's law, people won't have phones anymore. Everybody's going to have glasses or going to have other means of projection. They'll have either, if Elon Musk had it, it would be direct implants into the brain. A lot of people are looking at how the development technology with contact lenses. And this is way, way, way out. But there's going to be a paradigm shift where we're not going to have anything in our hands anymore, and everything's going to be controlled by gestures. That's another thing that we're working on with the University of Maryland. There is a market for it in it's very, very niche. You see sometimes you see these in museums. The Natural History Museum has it, for example. We're also building an experience for the 24 Hours of Le Mans race in Le Mans, France, which we demoed last year, and this year we're doing another demonstration there, where it's people who have access to this want to see it can get a an experience that's very unique and tailored to the environment. But who wants to be able to be on their phone for any more than 30 minutes looking at the screen? The market's not there for it yet. So it's very, very niche.
Gotcha. Murray, maybe you can go a little bit in why you're sort of the market research you've done and why you pivoted from, the tape to more of a packaging product.
Yeah, happy to do that. I think it's hard to be a startup without witnessing any kind of pivots, and I think it's how to appropriately do the pivot, I think is probably a very important part. But I think the amount of companies and you could probably see this on LinkedIn, the amount of times people discuss pivoting is a common experience. But I think a key part of I think any part of customer discovery is constantly talking to your customer and trying to figure out exactly what they need and what exactly is the pain point you're trying to solve. And I think being, being a first time founder and trying to, figure out the process pretty early on is I was learning customer discovery as I was doing it. And I think in our process of talking to people about burrito tape and what that entails, it became pretty obvious that the idea of keeping a burrito closed is not a pain point. It's an inconvenience at best. And, another part of it is when you're talking about burritos or tacos, sometimes it's the culture of the food, right? Like it's messy. That's a part of the experience. And, to sit there also as a foodie and to say, I want to eliminate that part of the experience, or even to say, personally for me, it's an inconvenience, but if you know how to wrap a burrito, that's not a problem anymore. So I think to be honest with yourself is what we had to face. And I think having enough of those conversations, and to be honest, we didn't have many before we came to that conclusion pretty quickly. Um, and I think that's when we were like, okay, I think we need to take a step back and figure out what is the thing we are doing though. And I think that's when we started kind of talking to people across just like film as a general understanding of like what is the biomaterial space, where are the problems that we're facing. And I think we all know sustainable packaging is something that has been prevalent and still we are, especially in the US, absolutely horrible at. You can talk to places amongst the EU and even Asian countries where they are doing waste management eons better than where we're at. But I think the core of it is that there clearly are problems in the way we're approaching this that need to be solved. And I think we had technology that could kind of lean into that, but also specifically the way we address ourselves from a business model perspective across the board is how we fix a lot of those problems. And I like to say that Tasty Tape, we're kind of this V2 of bioplastics that's coming out. We've seen a bunch of companies fail, we've seen them struggle, and now we can kind of learn from those lessons and formulate better versions that will then hopefully actually lead to material adoption. And I think customer discovery was really the crux of that. And I think even as a company now, we still need to be constantly talking to our customers to say what are we missing and what can we be doing better, especially as the landscape continues to evolve.
And Marie, just so for those who don't know what customer discovery is, maybe you can kind of talk about maybe a little bit of what you did there.
Yeah, of course. I think plainly said, it's actually engaging with the people that might be using your product and figuring out what do they care about and do they care about the thing that you think they care about? Because we can sit here as business owners and have assumptions about, oh, like this is what I think about when it comes to sustainable packaging. You want it to be sustainable, but you talk to the people that are actually buying your product and they have a total different set of priorities. And that comes down to what is the cost? You are putting money down on this, and that is a key element across the board. Pricing strategy is insightful. So you have to meaningfully have conversations with the people that are actually going to be using your product to figure out what they care about from a series of priorities, whether it's cost, whether it's supply chain, how readily available is the thing that you're trying to sell to them, whether it's performance, what aspects of performance do they care about? And I think that kind of to have an understanding of those key characteristics is essential when it comes to figuring out what is your solution and how do you ensure that it can succeed in that particular market with those customers?
And
Great.
markets are dynamic. They're not the same everywhere.
Maybe you want to expand on that. What have you learned
So
regarding the differences when you look at
so
market?
with augmented reality, it's a choice experience. And we are the first festival, which was Beauty in the Backyard, which was done in Oakland, Maryland, 3 years ago. And we had a really, really successful showing there as a beta. And we made it available for everybody to download. And I think there was about 2,500 people at that festival. And I would say half of them downloaded it, maybe a quarter of them used it. Part of that is not advertising it enough, not having enough bandwidth in the area for people to download because it's kind of remote. But they really, really loved it, the people that did use it. Now you take it into another market, which was another festival, but a different kind of marketed festival. And it was a subsidiary of the Burning Man Festival. It was called To the Moon in To the Moon Burn in Tennessee. Now, for those who have been to Burning Man or not Burning Man, a lot of people know that it's, self-reliance and you don't rely on technology. You're kind of out there in the wilds. Well, that's a different complete market. Who's going to have their phone on them? Or when they're there, do they even want to use the phone? So we made it available for people to use. Some people saw it and they go, yeah, this is pretty cool, but this is not why I'm here. I don't want to use it. But then I go and we demo this down on the mall in Washington, D.C., a couple of maps that I've made down there, and I show it to tourists, and they're like, "Where can I get it? Where can I get it? Oh, I need this right now," type of thing. So it depends on where your market is and who you're marketing to, right? So there's effort put that I would never take the effort put in Tennessee away. I think that was fantastic because we learned, well, okay, we don't need to do that. But DC is a fantastic market. So it's really knowing and going out there and testing it and speaking with people.
And how about you, for you, Joy? You saw this gap, I think you mentioned, between what's happening in education and what is needed. What other market research did you see or do to help sort of fill this gap to build your service and product?
Okay. So our research was actually largely based on experience driven rather than do a market search talking to other people because both me and my husband has more than 10 and 20 years of industry experience before we came back to academic. So we see that years of teaching also allow me to understand that common gap in between. So that's what the first wants to build this company. And then as we build on, we're trying to, because we're in a local communities, Frostburg is pretty small community. We talk about stuff like, hey, we have college students, adults that who's interested in the industry. And I also want to do something that's like bring K-12 kids for the first curiosity about technology. And the lab environment we have is the most upfront technology. For example, we want using that AI augmented everything. So we'll have AI coding, assistant AI coding, cybersecurity automation, and other research. And there's another thing is we when we were discussion between the three co-founders, we talk about we want to bring benefit to the local people. Like our students, they will be able to not only learn with a more practical environment, but we also want to, in the future, create an internship opportunities for them to actually work on real projects for local businesses. So it's, I don't know how to put in a word. I have the vision, but our grand opening is just last Saturday. I told Stacy about it. So we just had our grand opening on Saturday, and which actually turned out pretty good.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Thank you.
congrats. But I think what we heard though from almost everyone is this is marketing isn't about going on the web and doing a bunch of market research. You might do some of that stuff ahead of time just to kind of get knowledgeable, understand terminology, but this is more about real world life, talking to people, understanding your own sort of career and what you see out there. So, that's kind of what I took out from that.
Yes,
Um,
yes. And I think the most difficulty part is the uncertainty. We all know that the university academic is all more structured, but when you become or wants to become entrepreneurial, there's a lot of uncertainties,
Yeah.
things that down the road that you don't have plan for it. So
maybe you can get a little bit deeper, Joy. Like, what are the things that keep you up when you talk about uncertainty? What risk do you think about? That you think about as an entrepreneur.
First of all, I think you need to make a decision on what you want to do. And we made that decision. So we rented a place and it took us quite a while. Like we rented the place in October last year and we just had our grand opening on Saturday. So our original plan was grand opening last year before Christmas, but it didn't happen. There's a lot of things going on because we never actually built a company, like a physical company with a location like that. So there's things out of control along the way. But what I want to say is it's all good because you know your goals, you know what you want to do. Whatever comes, we overcome it. So that's why I said the biggest challenging for us is the uncertainty. Things happen along the way. All we need to do is face the challenge, be patient, make sure we still have our original goal in our mind, not to rush things. And yeah, and then now we're here.
Joy, I just have a question. Have
Mhm.
you been physically, I'm sure you have, but have you gone to the local elementary schools? Like I know Bell, Frost,
Yeah.
um, I'm trying to think, Mount Savage, all of those schools to, I think it'd be kind of really neat if you could start like a tech club in each one of those,
Yes.
younger K
Yes. That's
through
yeah,
six or
one of
whatever
our
schools there.
plan. Yes. We
Okay.
actually my daughter goes to Frost Elementary School. She's fourth grader. I already sent a grand opening invitation to her teacher, and she was actually doing a presentation to her classmates. That was pretty exciting for her because she helped me build some of the display sample robots and other stuff. So she's really good helper. But yes, to answer your question, we do want to have local community like other elementary schools, even middle school or high school, we can have some collaboration events. When I was teaching one of the class in FSU, I also do focus on the future event. I don't know if you know that event is for eighth graders for the local schools that they come and different companies and entrepreneurs will do showcase on their stuff. So I want to have build that relationship with the local community and then maybe um, to offer some good opportunities for the kids in the area for them to see the technology, how the technology grows so fast, and maybe start their curiosity and the kids interested in the area will have a chance to put hands on. And we also have a open studio for parents can assist the kids to make hands-on projects together. So it's
I
very
need
family
I
friendly.
need to sign up for that. So no, I was just really honestly, for Christmas, my one grandson who is 10, I was trying to figure out what I could get him, and I wanted something in that STEM related field. And
Hmm.
thank goodness Luma and her husband Noah were like, oh, well, this is what we suggest. But now I'm at the point that I'm like, I just spent a weekend with a bunch of students at a hackathon, and I realized how unintelligent I am in that computer science IT realm. And I am like, I need to come take some classes. But I just could see that if you have like a tech night for students or start your own Innoverse Tech, am I saying the company name correct? Innoverse,
Inner Zevers.
Innerziverse.
Yeah.
To create like this team, this camaraderie type of thing, and have it to where it's kind of like a little tech club
Hmm.
for any of the area students that want to join in that. It would be cool.
You're welcome to come to visit us. We open from
I am
6 to
coming.
9
I am
during
coming.
weekdays. I'll show you around. We have a room for college students and adults that's who already experienced in the areas can do some hands-on projects, real world scenarios, and it's guided. And we're planning to offer different topics workshop in the future. And then we also have a separate room just for the K-12 kids to family and kids or kids workshop. So come visit us.
Great. Do we have any other questions before I move on? Anybody want to ask a question? Feel free to jump in or raise your hand. Okay. Joy, let me ask a question. I think you mentioned you have two other co-founders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How did you as co-founders decide to do this together, take these risks together? I mean, it's almost like marriage when you bring on co-founders. What was
Yes.
sort of the both the ways you knew this is you wanted to do this journey with him, and what happened to make that sort of partnership happen.
Okay, first of all, one of the co-founder is my husband. So, like you said, it's like marriage. Whatever he wants to do, I always support. And then when he talked to me about this, I like the idea because I also see what he sees. Since we both have industry experiences. And the other co-founder is one our best friend, and he also works, David. He also works in the computer science department. So we were just chatting, and he's really interested, and he gave us some good ideas. So I always think triangle is the strongest structure. And that's why we made a decision, and then we started a company, which make me really happy, especially on that grand opening day is I have two grad students when I first came to Frostburg University that they already graduated and they're still in the area. They just kind of walk by and walk in, saw this grand opening. They didn't know what's going on. And they heard my voice. They said, "Is that Dr. Joy's voice?" They came in and they really loved the ideas. One of them even subscribed the full premium plan already. So that trust really just made me feel really good.
Great. And Thurin, you mentioned you also have a co-founder. Maybe you can talk a little bit about the process. I mean, that you
Yeah.
guys had the same vision and such.
So as I mentioned before, my co-founder is Matt Levine, and he and I just met serendipitously, and because things happened. I was doing a musical performance in DC at a venue. When I packed up my bags at the end of the night, when I got back home, I found these really nice Maui Jim prescription sunglasses, and I live up in way out of DC. I was like, oh, that's okay. Someone's gonna miss these. So I decide to take them back to the bar, and because they're nice. And the someone at the bar said, "Wow, that's amazing. How far did you come?" I'm like, "Oh, like I live like 40 miles away, that's something like that, not too far." But anyway, they go, "Well, that's really, really nice. We think you should kind of come and join us," which was this Burning Man festival, and it's all about putting yourself in a position of success. And what I mean by that is that I put myself out there for other people to see this is someone that I want to be around, that inspires me to be a better human being. And I've found that in my position, what I work with Matt is that he has these great ideas. He's a polymath, just a brilliant man that has a difficult time kind of pushing things forward. And when he met me, he was like, "Man, you're a doer. You're a guy that just goes out and gets it. Let's try to team up together and see how we can do this. What do you think of this idea? I love this idea. Let's make it happen." So I found that my position with him as a co-founder is to motivate and give him that energy and that sense of we can do this. That type of leadership, that someone that you want to be behind that says, no matter what we face, we can do this together. And I don't pretend to know everything. I'm not as smart as he is in a lot of faculties, and he's not as adept in a lot of faculties that I have. And so we found that doing this together as co-founders, it's easier when we can lean in on each other on the difficult times. Like when we're talking about, okay, developing a business plan that is really, really thick. I've had zero experience with, but he has experience with. But then when he wants to go and I want to talk to this institution. I want to talk to these people. How do we go about doing it? I'm like, I got a lot of experience doing that. Let's go do it. I know which way. I know how we're gonna go. So it's about finding that commonality, that jointness together that you can feed off of, and allowing the other person to do their job, and trusting them that you're gonna and trusting them that they're gonna let you do your job.
Marie, I know you maybe have had some co-founders. I'm not quite sure where you're at, or how you brought in, potential employees, contractors. How do you think about it, as you've been building Tasty Tape?
Yeah, great question. So describing it as a business marriage is probably one of the most accurate ways to put it. And unfortunately, I went through a divorce, so that that was, unfortunate on my end. But it is so essential in terms of how you pick a like a co-founder, especially. I had previous ones, things didn't work out the way they were supposed to, and I think it also comes down to, being a part of a startup, being a co-founder is not for everyone. It is, to Joy's point earlier, so much uncertainty, so much risk, and not everyone has appetite for that. And that is totally acceptable. It is, you could say we're all a little crazy for choosing the lifestyle that we chose. But I think, not everyone is attuned to that. And I think that's kind of, some of the part of that we faced. And I think coming to the realization and coming out of that and still having a company at the end of the day, I'm very happy to say that, I was lucky on that end. But that going through that process alone has made me be very cautious and aware of what you need when it comes to a co-founder. And I think to Theron's point on the idea of you need someone that can really be complementary to what you're good at and what they're good at. And you don't want a lot of overlap in that. You don't want people that do the exact same thing. And I think essentially when you're building a business, that sense of having the appropriate work chemistry, but also having the complementary skill set and being able to go out there and do the thing and be fast about it has been so critical. And we've been able to bring on, I've brought on a full-time material scientist, and he has been absolutely critical to some of the changes we've made. And he's been with us for about a year now. And to say that I have a product here that looks like a plastic, I think I can't go without saying that that was a huge part of his doing. And thinking through, it's like, is his, work set complementary to what I'm trying to do? And ultimately, a key part of that, and this is what I would recommend for anyone, is running a little bit of a trial. Do a small project with someone. Even if you maybe to Joy's end, you're not necessarily married to that person and she's already had the experience of working with her husband. But I think the idea that like you get to trial something out with someone, run a little project, see what that's like. If it doesn't make sense, great. You've learned that and you can move on. But I think that is always super essential and figuring out because not everyone's meant to be, you're not meant to be married to someone in a business always. And I think that's really fundamental because that can be something that can be the downfall very quickly. And you find that most startups actually die that way. And so be very cautious and be very intentional about how you go about that. And I think running a trial of sorts is really the best way to do that if you don't necessarily already have that work relationship.
What I do have a question for you, Marie. So you said that you started this and it was part of your master's thesis. So obviously you were still in school, and I'm assuming that maybe your first co-founder was a schoolmate or classmate or peer. What is your advice to students who sometimes we see them go through projects in a classroom? This entrepreneurship class that Dr. Joanna Short and Dr. Ha is on the call. They have students who are working together, and we have some groups that come up with really good ideas, but one's graduating, one's staying. What is your advice to these students as to how, one, you either keep the product moving in its progression? How do you keep the marriage alive? What's your suggestion?
Yeah, I think plainly put, and this is a great question, communication. And I know even when I was a master's student, I didn't have this all down either. But like be transparent as possible. What does your next year look like? Am I staying here? Am I leaving? Do I have a job elsewhere? Be communicative on that end. Just be honest with yourself too, right? Which is like if I'm going to be working a full-time job, can you run a startup on the side of that? It's hard to do that. I know people that do that. It can be possible, but it is a steep ask. So I think you have to be, honest with yourself as you're starting a new job. Can I sit here after my 9 to 5 and sit and do another 8 hours or another something on top of that, right? And I think, it can be sometimes hard to do that and you have to maybe try it out, but at least being transparent on that end is saying, hey, I'm here for my master's, I'm working on this. I don't know what my schedule looks like, but I'm going to try to figure it out, work on it as long as possible, and just know that I care about this, but I can't maybe fully be there. But I think as long as you are always somewhat forward looking, being honest, being communicative, it's the best thing that you can do, because that's a key aspect of it. But also as it helps you work through the relationship, because one of the key aspects of any kind of co-founder relationship is having appropriate communication, because you are going through a roller coaster. You are in high stress situations. There are moments where you need money ASAP. You have deadlines, and you need to make sure that whoever you are with is someone that you will actually be able to like work with. And if you're already having issues earlier on, I would be really cautious about it. And I think that honesty and that level of communication is probably the two key pieces that you need more than anything, especially if you're thinking about continuing to work on the project moving forward.
Thank you.
Well, great. Nobody thought we'd get marriage advice through this panel, but we have it now. So if you're dating someone, test them out in some stressful situations before tying the knot.
Hey, hey,
Um,
hey, Mike, I have a question just around
of course, Jeff.
prenuptial agreement, since we're on the marriage theme here. Um, it sounds like all the founders here have different partnerships, different relationships. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of making sure your agreements are in place, and knowing that those agreements will potentially transition into the future, but how important it is to have those in place as you enter enter a business with a partner?
Anybody want to take that on?
Yeah, sure. So Matt and I, when we were developing this, deciding if we were going to be an LLC, that's how we started. And we're a small company. He and I are the founders, and then we have two contractors that write most of our development code. And then we had an intern who is now a contractor who does our 3D animations. And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to make it so that the ownership is split up between Matt and I, and now we're an S corp. And we have that documented with the state of Maryland. We have our charter that we both signed on, and we have um, essentially the mission plan saying what is our business ethos and how are we going to operate that, which is really, really important. And our idea of what we wanted this company to be. We want it to be successful, but we want to have fun while we're doing that. And we don't want it to be such a headache that we start bickering at each other. So in deciding how we make business decisions, it's a 50-50 deal. That doesn't mean that supporting it and bootstrapping it is a 50-50 thing. It goes back and forth, however we decide to do that. So there needs to be, we have a documented structure about how we go about doing things, but there needs to be a lot of leeway to allow it to grow, for it to be able to breathe, because we are humans with it. But the documentation that's registered states specifically how the business is going to operate. And it's pretty straightforward starting, in my opinion. I've never done this before, but it was pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I think to second that point, 100% documentation is critical to that, to make sure all the legal is there, because things can get pretty ugly. And I know I've been very much a cynic through this whole process, as someone that is seen a little bit, maybe has gray hair on this end. It can get pretty messy. So you have to make sure that, like, first of all, the business is protected, but also you're protected as an individual. So I think documentation critical. You have to have an understanding, and that goes back to my communication point. You have to an understanding of essentially what everyone is going to be doing here and who makes final say decisions. Because sometimes you can have the 50-50, but you both are at odds with each other. So you have to have essentially a plan is, how do we decide something where you can't come up with an even decision? And there's multiple strategies and ways of going about that. So there's certain situations where having a lawyer present, I know there's certain lawyers that will do pro bono work on this end, but there's also a lot of just like, you can easily look up legal agreements that are associated with how co-founder relationships should be established, that can be easily found online, because that structure is generally consistent across the board for more startups. So you can kind of follow the structure that aligns there. But if you want more nuance, I think definitely getting some kind of like legal advice, and especially because sometimes the legalese gets very, very complicated, and I can't even parse through that all the time. So I think documentation is important, but also making sure everyone has an understanding of what expectations are at the end of the day. And if things, are at odds, you need to ensure that at the end of the day, some decision is kind of made and who has that say. Because sometimes a 50-50 is a split, but also 49-51 is a split. And that is something that's also really common that works for some people. So you really just need to figure it out. And there's a lot of structures in place that kind of already lay it out.
Yeah, I would second that. Definitely have legal advice outside. Don't take that on, and have multiple legal advice because we operate in Europe as well. So we have laws that we do with license end user license agreements in the United States are very different with what it's like in Europe, and so making sure that you have multiple avenues of getting accurate information, and even though AI is really good. It is only as smart as the information going in. I mean, if you're starting a company, go to humans. Go to humans for this information because it will, especially if you're dealing outside of the United States.
I totally agree with Theorem and Maria. Communication and documentation. Even though I married my husband for over 20 years and we had a very good relationship, we still had an attorney to actually help us to forming the company, write down documents, all the legal documents. So we went through that. My husband has the majority of the shares, so he is the big shareholder. And we already have our team divided up into different areas. So he's more tech side person, software, cybersecurity. So that's his part. And then I'm the president of the company. So whatever anything happens outside of the company, I have to deal with it. I mean, not only to that, and anything inside of the company, I do also help. And the other guy is more hardware kind of person. So we have our different areas and we do communication with each other very often. And normally we don't try to, get to other people's area, try to cut into it. We can make suggestions and but we don't kind of like, I'm gonna take control of your area. So giving each other spaces, understand each other and be patient with each other and do communication, I think is very important.
This is great. And as Marie said, there's data that actually points to co-founder conflicts is one of the major causes of companies to dissolve. And so all the advice that, Joy and Maria and Thurin gave are important, as far as having long conversations of what expectations are, having agreements, trying not to getting in each other's lane, respecting sort of the visions that you're creating and the expertise that you're leveraging, from that perspective. So that's, I think, super important. Glad we could spend some time on that because it's easy when you're in a startup competition. It's much different when there's money on the table and other people have complicated lives that they have to deal with and managing the company. Any other questions before we move on to some other topics? Let's talk about how you actually get money to actually move your company forward and get things done. Maybe because Joy, you just started, you had your launch. Maybe you could talk about how you've been able to sort of just fund and get things going, whether you bootstrapped with your own capital, got any grants, got any loans. Like, what was the process to actually do the launch of your company?
Yes, it's basically self-funded. So we have some extra money and we want to put in use and we want to, give back to the community, especially our students. So that's how it started. So right
And
now
so,
we don't have any extra external fundings, but maybe in the future we will be seeking external fundings.
great. And so you've always realized that this capital, personal capital, would be the way to fund your business.
Yes, and then my husband said we're gonna give it a year of trying. If it's not working, I'm okay with losing all that money. And I agree with him, but I don't think we're gonna fail.
We hope you don't. I think
We're
Theron,
gonna
you
make it
mentioned
work for you. We're gonna make
Oh,
it work.
thank
If I
you.
have to go boots on the ground, we're gonna make it work.
Theron, you also mentioned you're bootstrapping right now. Um, and you have a partner, how that might work and what maybe your future goals are when you have to invest maybe more in the technology.
Yeah, so one of the things that he and I, um, in doing our research and reading and kind of learning and speaking to people who are in the industry was about um, when you have an idea and it's yours and it's your baby, right? If you bring external funding, they give you a little time for you to continue holding that baby, but then they're going to start putting pressure on you. And what happens at that time is it's called the funder's trap or the founder's trap, where you're so focused on trying to make your idea come to work and you're willing to fund it, right? That other ideas and other management that comes with money from the outside will start to give you ideas or start to say we should go in this direction, this and go in this direction. And that can be a real pain point for you as a founder about staying true to what your mission is. And so in deciding that we were going to do this, we said, okay, well, this is a long game. We understand where the technology is. We understand what we have and how we're trying to bring this in with the development of technology that will support it. And it's probably a five-year program. And so we looked at how much do we think this is going to cost us based off of our initial beta that we worked with Petrichor before we decided to go and just do things on our own. And based off of that capital expenditure, we were like, we can, between the two of us, based off of how we manage things and we keep it small, we will be able to fund this ourselves at a rate of growth and development that we need over a 5-year period. And so far, we're no more than about 10% over budget, which is pretty good. I think it's pretty good. But that's also come at expense for certain things, such as we are not able to hire some of the people that we would want to be able to do some work to propel us a little bit more. So I've had to learn to do things that I've never done before. And so the bravery of learning, okay, well, I don't know this. I'm going to have to go and figure it out. Right. And so it's about expanding yourself. So there has to be a decision and try to stick with that decision. And so far we've done that. Now we're looking at, and what we've been trying to do is getting some capitalization by actually step by step releasing products that people would be wanting to pay for. And so far, we've been able to do that. And we're sort of starting to get a little bit of capital flow in there. But how do we use it? I'm not getting paid. This is going to being able to spend for individuals that are providing services for us right now. So it's what I'm afraid to talk about when we get big money coming in or people wanting to invest and what decision we have to make at that time. And I know it has to happen, but we're not there yet.
Got it. So it's really about bootstrapping, and as revenue comes in, as you said, you're not taking a salary; it just goes all back into the company to build that product as you want.
And I'm
Um,
fortunate because I'm retired, foreign service officer, so I have an income
sure,
that provides for that, and I also, I'd save money and all these other things. So, and this is a personal decision, and I also have a certain amount of money that I have that I'm willing to spend on this, and certain money that I'm not going to touch, and that
sure,
that allows me to not feel pressured. And that's one thing. It's, oh, we have to make this decision because it's an emotional decision because I've got all this money invested in it. For me, like Joy, I'm like, well, I can let it go if it doesn't work out, and I'm not hurt by that. And that's really really important for being able to make clear-headed decisions that are not based off of emotion, which is can sink you.
yep. So Marie, you didn't work for 30, 40 years and have had a pension and retirement. You've came try to do this right out of school. I'm guessing not with a lot of personal income yet. So how did you do this?
I wish I could say that. But I think, yeah, clearly I haven't had like the savings and kind of the my own personal capital to back up everything that I've done thus far. And especially being in a very hardware intensive industry where R&D is where a lot of the capital expenditure is going, and it is very deep. Where I have an R&D facility, there's a lot of money spent that way. So I'm going to be 100% a devil's advocate here in terms of investment, in terms of grant opportunities and not being self-funded here. I think, especially as a student, you need to find sources and you need to diversify that as much as possible. So all that to say, and maybe to Theron's point here is investors, there are good ones, there are bad ones. It goes without saying, and you have to be smart and do your due diligence, meaning you have to do your research in terms of who you are going to essentially be giving some portion of your company to for a certain amount of money. And it is important you do your research, you find out what other companies they have within their portfolio, how those companies feel about their investors, to what degree those investors are willing to be hands-on with you, and what you want, right? Because that relationship is so variable. And we have had VC investment. It's worked really well on our end. We have people that support us, that are behind us in every way, and luckily are pretty hands off. And we've been able to kind of tailor that relationship in terms of we don't necessarily feel that pressure that Theron is describing, where we have to kind of answer to people consistently. That's all to say that it does come with that. You now have other people's money. You have to kind of answer to that. So ultimately, we've also received angel investment. I have angel investors that I need to provide updates to, and they need to hear what's happening with the company. So, and we've gotten grants as well, and that's also a separate source of funding. But, that comes with less of that pressure. So, it's a great way to fund it. It's a great way to get capital, but, you do feel a certain amount of pressure. And the way that I respond to that is, it's great. It's something that drives me forward and motivates me. And luckily, I've had a good group of investors around me that don't kind of try to drive my company in a way that is not what I want to do. And that's not the way that everyone gets to speak about investors. I hear stories left and right, probably 50-50 in terms of really bad investors out there that people have to deal with. And they're the ones that can also kill companies. And you have to be very careful about who you choose to be on that cap table at the end of the day. And, we've been very lucky in that process and have done our kind of own due diligence on that. But I think it's very important that capital allows you to move. And if you need lots of capital very quickly, this is a way of doing that. And especially if you can't necessarily be self-funded, and time is of the essence as a startup, and this is our way of doing it. And to ensure that we can move fast and move with the amount of capital we need, this is the route that we chose. But you just have to have the street smarts with it, and really do your research on that end, and kind of be intentional always, and have the conversation, speak to everyone about the process, because there's always nuance. There's, especially when you have people on board that now have parts of your company, things can get pretty hairy pretty quickly, and you have to be super involved in the process and be aware of every part of it.
Marie, did you ever consider bridge loans?
No, we have no debt right now, even though I've heard debt it can be a really great thing. So that's something we haven't quite explored yet, but definitely are interested.
Maybe you could talk a little bit how you found the angel investors and the institutional, like where, they obviously don't grow on trees. Like, what was the process to get the capital?
Yeah, so I'll speak a little bit more to our institutional investor first, and then kind of dive into the angels, because that was something we did more recently. So the institutional investor was actually through an accelerator program, very similar to Y Combinator. It's called IndieBio. Basically, you'll go through an accelerator program, and then they'll formulate some kind of investment into your company following that. So you have a lot of these like early stage companies that have models that are oriented around that. Once again, they're not for everyone, but I think for us, it worked really well because we'd never fundraised before. This was an opportunity for us to learn about the process and have people that write early checks into us. And we actually got connected to them through the Johns Hopkins Entrepreneurial Center. So that was something that was super helpful for us. And it's always just warm intros that I think are advantageous here. So that was how we got connected, and we ended up having a couple of meetings, ended up doing some pitches, got some grant money from them as well. And then that ended up converting into us actually entering the program and getting that investment. That was like a relationship we fostered for a couple of months to actually get to that point. And I think with our angel investors, that was something that angel investors can be hard to find. And if you don't necessarily have the plethora of network, especially me as like an earlier kind of founder, being younger, I don't necessarily have the network that comes with people who have ready to have cash to immediately hand out. So a lot of it was kind of plugging into who do I know of my advisors, does someone know someone? Does this person know someone? And every conversation was essentially, hey, do you know someone that would be interested in chatting about, our fundraise and giving us some money at the end of the day? And that was something where, I had warm intro of warm intro of warm intro. I've the amount of LinkedIn cold outreach I've done, the amount of different avenues I've explored to get to the amount of angel investors that we had definitely took, some elbow grease for sure. And that once again, it just really depends on the depth of your network. And I've been able to build one now that I can speak to heavily. But it is something that I think warm intros and the network that you have are very critical on that end. And that was something that eventually got us to get that angel round through the door and get that completed. But I would say maybe overarching theme is all about your network and building that out and ensuring that is robust and you have people to call to in times of need.
Any questions about financing from the participants here? Yeah, I mean, as Tyrone said, it really is it really has to match your financing with your strategy, and there's no wrong answer. It's really, you know, bootstrapping is often not talked about enough, and more startups should do it, and especially if you can drive revenue early to drive cash flow. But as Marie, only about 0.5% of American enterprises get capital like Marie does. So it's more of a unique situation to be able to get an investor and some angel investors in. So
Yeah.
um,
I want to speak to that real quick. It obviously two different approaches between what Marie's company's approach was and our approach was is and correct me if I'm wrong, Marie, but you have a tangible product that you can show people and they can touch and they can see how it's employed and utilized, right? So it's they can have the vision, they understand where this is going for the future. One thing that's been difficult for us, not that it's not difficult for Marie because the markets are very, very different, is being able to help people that have not had an experience with what we're doing see the potential for the future and articulating that and making it a tangible product for them. There's a lot of demos that we do, and there's people that are like, wow, this is fantastic. I mean, can I imagine in this aspect? Can I imagine using it in this aspect? Okay, how do we bring that to life, kind of thing? And they're like, yeah, I just don't know. I just don't believe that this is actually something that's going to work for the future. And so it's about being able to share what the vision is and finding people that are willing to take that risk. And when people are willing to invest money, risk is always one of those things that they're going to have to balance. Are we competing with Google? Are we competing with Meta? Are we competing with, one of the other 5,000 different AR companies that are globally active right now on that you can see on LinkedIn? So what is your vision? Is it tangible? And can you find a market that wants to be able to be a part of that vision, whether it's 6 months, 5 years, or 10 years down the road? And they're very, very different. And I think understanding where you're going to get your capital is going to influence that, and that's going to influence where you get your capital.
Yeah, I think just to add on to that, I think VC as a whole has appetite for things at various levels. AI, loving it right now. Do they love materials as much? It's a different question. Do they love climate tech in general right now, just considering political atmosphere? It's very hard. Right now, raising as a climate tech company, I'm going to be honest, it is very difficult time. And I think being aware of just like those market trends and driving that is 100% critical. But I think with that, there are the amount of VCs and investors that exist, let alone in the States, is an absurd quantity. And with volume, you could definitely find someone that is willing to support you. And I think to that point, it is volume. It is meaning some of the best companies, and I'm pretty sure Uber had this similar process. It took them 200 calls to get to their first investor. And the amount of calls and pitching that you do to get to that first one, and the important part is it's someone that's committed to you, someone that's sold on your story. And I think to what Theron's describing it here is that it has to be someone that's there for it. They see the future, they want it. that's the future that they see, and they're willing to put the money into it. And I think that is such a critical part, is if you don't have people that are sold on the vision, that's where you have bad investor stories, people that are trying to drive your ship. And I think that becomes so essential, and in finding those early adoptees, those early champions for what your future is and what you're trying to make as a company is critical. They're there, you just have to find them, whether it is, your own personal capital and finding another co-founder, or if it is another investor or VC investor, angel investor, whatever it is. There are people that can be sold on the mission. You just have to go out there and find them.
Well said. Well said.
So let's kind of go to maybe one last question. Theron, I'll start with you. Just kind of maybe a super high and a super low in your startup days. Like what was like one of the best days you had, while running this company, and what was one of the most difficult days that you've had?
Ah, woo. The best day I had um was the day when I was at the 24 Hours of Le Mans race last year. And having built a map, when we call them our maps, our experiences, because it's a 3D navigation, augmented reality experience map that we can put anything into. And I built a map that was specific for the race, with information and some like beautiful things to look at, some just like race data, all sorts of things. And I'm dealing with a multi-billion dollar organization, the premier race in the world, automobile race, the oldest race in the world. It's got Ferrari and Porsche and Ford and Michelin and like massive names, right? But sponsored by Rolex, right? And I'm sitting here going, okay, I am this very, very small company. Nobody knows of us. And I have the audacity to build a map and to say, hey, would you like to take a look at this? And the way I did it was I funded myself to be able to be in an area where I would have access. It's very, very important. I bought a really nice VIP ticket. And that was a funding decision that Matt and I made. I have to, otherwise I'm not going to access people. And so I went there, and it wasn't like just cold calling, but what it was is I was sitting there working for the week, because the race is a long buildup, and just kind of like, how's this working? What is this looking? People walking over my shoulder going, what is that? I was like, oh, well, it's an application I'm working on. I'm building it here, and we're debuting it for the race. And I got some curious people saying, I'd be interested to see this, see that, whatnot. So I go down, and I'm doing some more videotaping, getting some imagery, and I bring it back up, and the concierge who's like running this area is like, what do you got going on there? It's like, well, I'm developing this. He goes, I know who you need to talk to. And the next thing I know, I'm talking to the people that I need to talk to, just like that. It came from being brave, a little bit audacious, and setting myself up for success and thinking about it and willing to take the risk to do it. Now, one thing I get is, being a diplomat, I learned to talk to a lot of people. I have zero problem going up and talking to people I don't know. That's not for everybody. Matt, my business partner, that's not him. He gets tongue-tied. So that's kind of the mission that I do, right? Complementing each other. The worst day is with the same company saying, we love your product. You're too advanced for us. We're not going to do it this year. The worst day. And it was a year all the way up, and I just found that out. We are not going to do it this year. However, the following year, we're going to talk about how we can do this, because they're an organization that runs slower than we do. They're set in their ways. It's run by, as they say, a lot of old people that don't have a vision for the future. But they promote tech. They promote being who's the fastest car every year. How do we develop H2 technology to be able to not run on fuel anymore, but hydrogen? So they're caught in between this, but developing that vision for the future of, this is what the sports fan is going to want to see here. and we can provide that for you. They're like, we don't know yet. So it was my highlight, but it was also one of my biggest disappointments. And we're going back again this year, of course.
That's a great story. How about you, Joy?
Yes, I'll start with the most difficult because I want to save the best for last. So I think it's the product for robotic learning. I had to go through so many different products and actually build it myself to test the quality. And not only that, the worst thing is I have to contact the company to see if there's an opportunities that I can get products from them directly. So that's the hard part. So I made tons of phone calls and sending emails, sending applications. I wouldn't say a worst state. I would say the worst process. But in the end, I pick my several products, and actually two of them respond back to me and give me a direct wholesaler price. So I will be able to get at least what I think is the product who has a better quality for the students to actually put hands on it. Um, Worst thing about that is the building myself. Worst thing. Testing all different products and then especially the ones that are not working. I spend so many hours on it. But it's also you got to also look at the good side. It's also a good experience that you're going through this. You understand the product as you were the person who actually building it. So you will later on when you're trying to guide the student, the kids to go through this process, you will understand what they go through and you will be able to guide them better. So that's the worst part. And also I wouldn't say no benefit at all. I learned from it. The best thing is the grand opening day is when I see steady engagement that parents lead the kids, guide the kids to build the robot successfully, and also parents showing interested in our workshop series, and they were very excited, and the kids were excited when they were doing hands-on stuff. And they were learning. I can see their sparks on their eyes. It's just make me so proud. Also, and the consistent the grad students that alumni come in and they were amazed by what we're doing and they put in their commitment. So really, it's not just one thing on that grand opening day. I've been talking and walking the whole day. I was so exhausted, but I was also so excited.
Amazing. And Maria?
Yeah, I think the worst, I'll also start with the worst because I think it's always better to kind of end on a positive note. But I think the worst is, as an entrepreneur, the amount of no's you get. It is pretty, it can be devastating at times. And I think fluctuating with, the amount that you're sitting on, or if this was the one that you were really counting on, this is the one that was going to pull you out of this one that could have led you to a next kind of point of inflection for your company. There are multitudes of those stories that I could probably share where that one day you've heard the third, fourth, fifth, 100th no at that point, and you're like, man, is any of this work? And the personal doubts, they can creep in at times. And I think it can be very devastating. You really end up in those valleys. And that idea of the roller coaster is super important here. But one of the best ones is, I think for us was getting that first check. Especially I think the angel check that first came in. We were kind of at this point of really needing some funding to make some moves that were going to be important for us for contract manufacturing, but also in terms of the material development. And after having so many calls, just doing the exact same pitch, you have the amount of random questions people ask you, and angel investors are an interesting bunch because it's people that have personal investment and they can ask whatever they want. When you finally get that first one, it was so rewarding. It made it all worth it. And people always say that first check is always the most difficult one. And once you do, the ball starts rolling, and suddenly you just got to that peak of the roller coaster, and suddenly you're down and you're swinging left and right. And I think that's how we felt. People started coming in. You start saying, okay, now we have three, we have four. Oh, okay, where are we going? And I think that kind of climb to get to the top, and finally getting to that top was super rewarding, and seeing all the work that you kind of laid out before you. I think was a really amazing experience. And there's a multitude of those stories that also kind of line. So, I think that's just to speak is those happen and there's a lot of them, and be prepared for that, but stick through it, because that just means you're one step closer to a yes.
Yeah, she's right. Maria is right. The roller coaster, emotional roller coaster you go through learning this and being able to rely on your team to be able to support you through it, because everybody has doubts. And doubts it's a natural part of it. But understanding how unique you are in the space that you're in, trying to create something new. There are thousands and thousands of people that would love to be in your shoes, to have that courage, to have that vision, to have that sense of, I'm not going to let anything get in my way. And understanding that movement forward is about a belief system. You have to believe in yourself. It's so key. That's one of the biggest parts of my job is constantly having this true sense of purpose and sharing that with my team, because they'll feed off of that. And when you get someone from external that comes in and they start, and we tested this. We had an individual that Matt knew, who had had a lot of experience working in industry and kind of in the tech world and stuff like that, that came in, and he was negative from day one, constantly telling us, this won't work, this, you can't do this, you guys are crazy, this kind of stuff. We're like, Matt and I are like, are we insane here? Are we just really so far out of our element that we don't know what we're doing, starting to doubt ourselves? And I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm not going to allow this to come into my company and to affect me. I understand what I'm doing. I understand it's a risk, but just because someone disagrees with you doesn't mean that you need to feel like you can't do this. And that's got to be a killer. I don't know about other people's experience, but I can't. I cut that cancer out as soon as I could, and we are back like full steam ahead, just doing it, because intention is so, so important. And there's people that will try to drag you out of that intention, but you stay focused.
I totally agree with you. That was a good call.
Any last questions before maybe we ask for one word of advice from everyone? Any last questions? Okay, Joy, what is maybe your 30-second sort of word of advice for people, ready to jump in and, doing a startup?
Can I do shorter than that?
Sure, of
Yeah.
course.
So start with a purpose, build with patience, and growth will follow trust.
Growth will follow trust.
Yeah.
We already got there, and you gave us the sort of no negative cancers, no negativity in your company. What else can you leave us with?
Surround yourself with people that know more than you do.
That's good. For me, that's very easy. And then lastly, Marie, what's your last piece of advice for these students? You've been there, you kind of understand the struggles of managing student life and sort of start.
Yeah, it's hard. Don't get me wrong. It's really hard, and at times it doesn't get easier. So, I think if anything, just start. It might not feel like the right time. It might not feel like you have all the pieces in place. There's never going to be a right time to start. So might as well do it. And I think with that, kind of jumping off of Theron's point, there are people there to support. You just have to ask. They're always there. And it might not feel like sometimes people are there, but you just have to surround yourself with people, ask questions, ask really dumb questions. Do all of it, because there's a community around you to help you in every which way. And even people that are some of the most intimidating people can be some of the most helpful people. So just start and ask for help.
The Nike slogan, just do it, right? Just do it.
Oh, and love failure. Love failure. I love failure, because every day you have a failure, the next day is your first day. And we all have first days and everything that we do. And that first day is the first step you take into the next day, into the next one. And that first failure you get sets you up for being able to have success and then failure and success. And get comfortable with that and learn how well you do that, because when people see you fail graciously and pick yourself back up, they will gravitate towards you because they want to be around people that have that courage, that have that strength to get through it. So don't be afraid of failure. I push us to break things. We try to break things. We try to make things. We try to make situations where we're just not up to the task, because we learn from that. And then we do better next time. We do better next time.
Exactly. That's how I learned from the fails, building products.
Aaron, I think you've been talking to my trainer. I've heard that before. If you fail on it today, you're going to be stronger tomorrow. And I'm like, no, I'm just more sore. I don't know
That's
if
a
I
good
agree with
sore.
that or not.
Do you know there's a Chinese old saying that failure is the mother of success?
Mhm.
So Stacy, did you want to end us here on what's next and such?
I will. I just want to say, first of all, to Joy, Marie, and Theron, thank you guys so much for showing up this evening and for all of the words of wisdom. I'm sitting here running in my brain, and I'm just thinking of how beneficial this information can be for some of our students, because I did just spend a weekend with them, and I believe one of them jumped on the call. Cameron, I'm calling you out. And this is what I keep trying to tell my students. You have an idea, run with it. They have so much support right here in our community at FSU, with any other affiliate associations that we have, this Accelerator program. I am hoping that more students will come back and review this video. And if they do and they have questions, if I would be able to direct them to any of you, to be able to maybe further dive into some discussions with all of you. If I can get that permission, that would be awesome. But I think I agree with all of you. I'm an entrepreneur myself, and it's just some days you scratch your head and you're like, what am I doing? And then there are other days that you're like, oh my golly, I'm so glad. And you truly are on a roller coaster. So very interesting to hear all of your perspectives on how your startups, and I love the stories. And I really hope the students attach to that, because just this weekend I told them, you never know who you may bump into, who you might talk to, that could be a future partner. So some really cool information. So I really appreciate your time. And if any of you ever want to come to campus, we would love to have you come. We can make that. Joy, I know you're already there, but
Yeah, I'll be
we
up
can just
there for the career and internship, and we've already discussed. I'm happy to come up there at any time. I'm fairly close, so
Luma and I have that in the works, so we're going to
great.
be tapping you very
Definitely
soon.
including me when Theron is coming. I would love to meet with him.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
have
Great.
already told him. I said Joy's going to be on the call, so I really want you guys to be able to connect with each other. So we'll make it a whole day. We'll do a tour. We'll do everything. So just to close, again, this was our fourth session. We'll be having some more sessions next Monday. Will be another one that will be led by Jeff Simcoe with our 4A, and he has a connection with Founded Outdoors. And so it'll be same time, 3 p.m. If any of you are interested in joining, I'll be sending out some more information. But in the meantime, I will probably be reaching out and tapping you guys for maybe some other opportunities to come in and speak to students and just to interact more and get this entrepreneurial creativity in gear with a lot of our students. So thank you, Mike, Emily, and Ben, for again facilitating and directing. I really appreciate all the information.
Yeah, amazing job, Joy, Theron, and Marie. That was great. I mean, your insights were terrific.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much, and look forward to hearing hopefully stories from some of the students as they're developing. And I'm always available. They can reach out at any time for advice or guidance or vice versa.
My pleasure
Awesome.
too.
Yeah,
Awesome.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
I also wanted to say thank you for having me and happy to provide any insight if anyone needs. They can find me on LinkedIn very easily.
Okay. Very good. Well, thank you, everybody. We're going to say our final goodbyes, and Emily could shut us off.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All the best.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.